Hello everyone, and thanks very much for joining me here today in another video. It's a very cold autumn day. It's about -2 at the moment, I think, and we're heading towards winter, so I'm sure it's going to get colder very soon. In this video, I'd like to talk about the importance of visualization in your landscape photography. That can mean quite a lot of things. It can mean visualizing how a scene can look with the correct lighting on it, and visualization in terms of just getting a little story going about the scene and trying to put that across to the viewer in your final image. So when I arrive at a scene such as this nice one that I'm at the moment, I like to start thinking in my head, does it look its best at the moment? Could it be improved with some side lighting or backlighting? What is the story that I'm trying to tell? Can I look at a scene and get any sort of story going in my head? So I've come up with something for this scene behind me, and I'll just talk you through how I've done that. The first thing that caught my eye is this Scots pine tree here with a really nice shape, and the lighting when I arrived was similar to it is at the moment. It's quite flat, but the sun is in this direction at the moment, so I thought if it could break through the clouds, some nice side lighting on this tree would really enhance its shape. So I started getting that idea going in my mind. Then by looking around more, I've got this nice tree off to the left in the distance. It's like a skeletal tree, and I was really drawn to that. So I started wanting to include that in my image, and I was trying to consider, before I even got my camera out, what would be the correct focal length to try and show that so you can see its detail in the frame, but obviously it's still going to be quite small because it's off in the distance. So I'm trying to visualize that in the final image and how large I want that tree to appear in the frame. Then when I looked and moved around more, I could almost see a relationship between these two trees here. They're perched up high in this remote area, and the skeletal tree off in the left is almost leaning over the trees just to its left, and then this tree here is leaning over that tree. So I'm kind of seeing that these trees have been here forever, and I'm visualizing in my head a little story going on, how they're linked. Then this tree here, as well as leaning over that one on the left, there's this nice mountain peak off in the distance off to the right, and it's also just leaning over there. So I've just got some sort of little story going over in my head, how this is quite a remote area, they're very old trees, and how they're linked in some way. And I've been trying to piece it all together in my mind, how it would look with some nice lighting on the scene. So that's what I thought about, and also considered the focal length as I spoke about earlier before I even got the camera out. And then with a lot of waiting around in this very cold air, I did get the nice side lighting that I wanted, and I took the final image. So I'll show you that now, and hopefully some of what I visualized and the story I wanted to tell will come across to you in that image. Oh, it really is getting cold out here now, so I think I'm going to head off in a few minutes. Apologies for the blown out sky in this video, but it will help illustrate some of the difficulties I've faced in capturing this image. So as I was walking past, I was drawn to this tree here. I really like the shape of it. And then off in the left in the distance there's another tree that I quite like as well. So in my head I began to visualize an image that I could potentially capture here. I like how this tree leans over to the left, and then the one in the distance leans over to the right, so they're almost sort of looking towards each other. Then the next thing I wanted to show in my image is just how far the terrain, the hills and the mountains stretch off into the distance. So to do that, I wanted to create a little bit of space between the two trees, but not too much, just enough to show some of those hills and the small trees in the distance. So that's what I visualised in my head, but as I walked past here, I couldn't actually see any way I could capture that image. If I was shooting this wide angle, which I would need to do from this area, I was shooting much too far upwards and taking in too much of the sky. And the sky is really bright, so it just didn't work at all. Also, being wide angle, the hills and the small trees in the distance were just far too small in my image. So I knew in my head what I wanted, and that's the beauty of visualization. It gets your mind clear on what you want, then you need to work out how to achieve it. So I decided I couldn't capture the image from here. Was there anywhere higher up I could go to let me capture the image that I wanted? So I did find a slightly elevated position back behind the camera, and by going there I could eliminate a little bit of the sky, which helped, and I could switch to my telephoto lens. So you're able to see much more detail in these two trees. Still see that the terrain goes off for miles into the distance, but just be able to make out some of those small trees off in the distance just a little bit clearer by using the telephoto lens. They are of course small, and they need to remain small just to show how far things stretch off into the distance, but by just getting into the correct position I was able to capture the image that I visualized in my head. So I think visualization is really important. I will say that I don't think the light's ideal for how I've captured this image today, so I'm not saying this is a fantastic image. I do like the composition, but it's very challenging lighting conditions at the moment. The sun is behind the trees, there's a huge dynamic range, and there's no real interesting light getting on the ground or onto the trees themselves. So this is more just an exercise in composition, and maybe one which I'll return to in the future. But by using visualization, I've at least found a composition I liked, and I think I'll possibly return here in the future when there's better lighting. Just taking some shelter behind this nice large tree here before I brave the walk back in the cold. I've enjoyed my time out today, but the temperature really has dropped, so I think it's time to head off. However, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video and found the information useful. I really do believe that visualization is a key, really important part of landscape photography, and I think it's vital to be able to visualize the end result that you want in order to help you capture nice images. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I'm off to brave this increasing cold wind, and I'll see you hopefully in my next video.